My name is Rowena Etheridge, 38 years old. I used to think I was married to my best friend. Now I realize I was married to someone who believed he'd done me a favor by existing. It started at a dinner that should have been ordinary, a double date with our friends Ben and Melissa at a quiet steakhouse. Soft jazz, wine glasses, clinking, polite laughter, everything designed to look civilized. Until Victor opened his mouth. Melissa had just joked about how Ben always holds the car door open for her. He's finally trained, she teased. Ben laughed, embarrassed. I smiled, but before I could add something light, Victor leaned back in his chair, flashing that grin he always used when he was about to perform. "Oh, please," he said. "Men aren't that hard to train. You just need to remind them who the prize is." Melissa chuckled awkwardly. "The prize?" He placed his hand on my shoulder possessively. "Take us, for example. Rowena here knows she got lucky. Right, babe. You should have seen how she looked at me when we first met, like she couldn't believe I chose her." I froze. The table fell silent. Ben stared at his plate. Melissa's smile wilted. I managed to whisper Victor, but he wasn't done. "Come on, sweetheart, don't be shy. Tell them. You always say it, you hit the jackpot with me." My chest burned. Everyone was watching. I tried to laugh it off, but his eyes glimmered with that smug certainty, the same look he gave during arguments when he thought he'd won. So I said it. "You're right, Victor. I'm lucky." He beamed. "See, that's why we work. She knows her place." Ben coughed into his napkin. Melissa looked ready to crawl under the table. The rest of dinner was a blur. More wine, awkward silence, the faint hum of the restaurant's air conditioner. When we finally got into the car, Victor was in high spirits. "You were quiet tonight. Everything okay?" "Why would you say something like that?" I asked. "Like what?" "That I should be grateful you chose me." He shrugged, smiling to himself. "Because it's true. I mean, look at me." He gestured at his tailored suit, his reflection in the rearview mirror. "I keep this family together. I bring charm connections class. You're good at, well, the logistics part." That word stung. Logistics. My entire career reduced to an afterthought. I'd been managing supply chains worth millions for solving crises that could derail ships, contracts, and jobs. But in his story, I was just the one balancing the budget behind his image. I didn't argue. I never did not right away. I'd learned that silence unsettled him more than confrontation. So I looked out the window and murmured, "You're right." He grinned satisfied. "Glad we see eye to eye." He didn't notice that I was already taking mental notes. The next morning, as Victor showered, I stood by our walk-in closet. His suits lined up perfectly. Color-coded ties. A man who built his life on appearances. I thought of his family, the Grace and Patrick Etheridge dynasty, as they called themselves. They weren't rich, not really. But they carried themselves like old money oversized house in the suburbs, the constant talk of networking circles and vacations they couldn't afford. Grace. His mother loved to tell people Victor inherited his ambition from her. Patrick just nodded like his only purpose was to agree. Then there were his siblings. Candace, the self-proclaimed entrepreneur who had started and buried 6 different startups in 5 years. Daniel, the orthodontist brother, married to Renee, who acted like she was married to royalty. For 7 years, I'd been the silent financier of their illusions. Every holiday, every expensive gift, every resort trip, it all came from my salary. Yet in their eyes, Victor was the successful one, the charismatic son with the thriving consulting firm. It was almost funny. Almost. I discovered the truth last Thanksgiving when Daniel clinked his glass and said, "Rowena, you're lucky Victor's business is booming. Must be nice to have a husband who can spoil you." I'd nearly choked on the cranberry sauce, but I smiled politely because the truth was absurd. Victor hadn't worked a real job in 2 years. His consulting was decorating a friend's restaurant for free. I should have corrected them then, but something stopped me. Curiosity, maybe. I wanted to see how deep the lie went. And oh, it went deep. 2 months later, he proved just how delusional he'd become. It was late February when he brought up his mother's upcoming birthday dinner. "We're hosting at the house," he announced. "Make it elegant. Grace deserves the best. I'm thinking 15 grand should cover it." 15,000, I repeated. He sipped his coffee like a CEO. "Don't be cheap, Ro. You know how much it means to her. Besides, I'll tell everyone I'm covering it from my consulting profits. It'll make her proud." I stared at him over my mug. "Right. You'll tell them." He grinned. "That's my girl. Always supportive." Supportive. That word again. He said it like it meant silent. That night after he fell asleep, I opened my laptop. 7 years of bank statements, credit card bills, wire Etheridge's furs, Gifts labeled from Victor that had my name on every line. I started building a folder digital first, then printed, highlighted, categorized, indexed. Every page told a story: dinners, vacations, the new sofa. Grace bragged about the business loan for Candace's failed app. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Some betrayals scream, others whisper over time until you finally hear the echo. He thought he'd humiliated me, but he'd given me something much stronger than anger. He'd given me purpose. 3 weeks later, as we drove to his parents' house for Sunday brunch, Victor was humming along to the radio. He looked pleased with himself, like a man who believed the world admired him. "You know," he said casually, "I think people underestimate us. Couples like us. I mean, we're power players in different ways. You're the organizer. I'm the face." I smiled faintly. "You do like being the face." "Of course, you handle the details. I handle the spotlight. Works perfectly. You should be grateful. I'm comfortable being the center of attention. It takes pressure off you." I turned toward the window, the reflection of his grin glinting in the glass. "Yeah," I murmured. "I'm grateful." He laughed softly. "See, that's what I love about you. You get it." What he didn't know was that by then I'd already backed up every file, every receipt, every etherregister onto a hidden drive. Because one day soon, when the spotlight turned too hot, I planned to let it shine exactly where it belonged. On him. It's funny how easily people mistake composure for forgiveness. After that dinner, Victor thought I'd moved on. What he didn't know was that silence is where my plans grow best. For weeks I said little, smiled often, and nodded at all the right moments. He thought we'd reset. I was just collecting data. At work, my team was preparing a major supply chain proposal worth 7 figures. While Victor boasted at family brunches about his consulting success, I was running multi-port simulations to prevent shipping delays across Asia. Different worlds. He lived in presentation slides. I lived in reality. Every night after finishing work, I would sit by the kitchen counter with my laptop, a glass of wine, a folder named Household. That was anything but. Inside it, 7 years of statements categorized into subfolders: vacations, gifts, loans, events. Each file tagged with a quiet note. He claimed this. He posted this on Instagram. He told Grace this was his idea. Sometimes I'd laugh quietly. I had receipts for lies I didn't even remember living through. One night, around midnight, he came out of the shower towel around his waist. "You're still working." "Just finishing up some spreadsheets." "Always so serious, Ro," he said, kissing my head. "You need to relax. You worry too much about money. I told you everything's under control." Under control. That phrase used to comfort me. Now it sounded like a dare. He sat on the bed, scrolling his phone. "Oh, by the way, Mom wants to make the birthday party extra special. Maybe a live band. She said it'll be great PR for my consulting brand." "Your brand?" "Yeah. She's inviting some of her Rotary friends. Good exposure. We'll tell them I'm expanding into corporate strategy." "Right," I said, hiding my smirk. "And how much exposure are we funding this time?" He chuckled. "Don't be dramatic. It's all for family." The next day I started recording. Not video, just small voice memos. His calls, his bragging, the phrases he repeated like prayers to himself. "I'm the face of this family. They need to know I'm successful. She's lucky. I'm confident enough to lead." Each line like a thread waiting to be pulled. And then came Candace. His sister called during lunch one day. "Ro, can you tell Victor I need him to send over the $7,000 soon? My newest business is taking off. I just need some upfront capital. You know how generous he is." My pen froze midair. "Of course," I said sweetly. "I'll let him know." When I hung up, I stared at the phone until my reflection blurred in the black screen. Generous. They really believe that. That night I brought it up. Candace called. She needs money again. Victor didn't even look up from his iPad. "She told you I told her you handle finances. Just wire it to her from our joint account. There's $2,000 in there. Then move some over from your account. I'll reimburse you later, like last time." He glanced up, irritated. "Why are you being difficult?" "It's for family." I smiled. "You're right. Family always comes first." He didn't notice me copy the etherregister confirmation to a hidden email folder. By March, my evidence binder looked like something out of a courtroom drama. Tabs, highlights, timestamps. The financial paper trail of an illusion. But I wasn't ready to show it, not yet. I needed the perfect stage. And Victor, oblivious as ever, was about to build it for me. One evening, as we sat on the patio, he announced it like a man revealing a royal decree. I'm thinking of surprising everyone at Mom's birthday dinner, he said. Big news. Something to shut Daniel up about his new car. I looked up. What kind of news? I'll tell them we're getting a Tesla, Model S, white interior. People will lose it. A Tesla. He nodded proudly. Symbol of success. Perfect for my brand. I'll say my consulting business just landed a huge client. They'll eat it up. I tilted my head, studying him. That's bold, he smiled. You'll see. Presentation is everything. I remember thinking, you're right, Victor. Presentation is everything. And I was going to make sure everyone saw the real picture. A week later, his family group chat was buzzing with plans. Grace. So proud of you, darling. Can't wait to see your success celebrated. Patrick. We knew you'd make it big one day, son. Candace Tesla. Wow. You've inspired me to relaunch my jewelry business. Daniel. Impressive, bro. Maybe you'll finally outdo me. Victor showed me the messages like trophies. See, they believe in me. I whispered. They really do. He kissed my cheek. That's why I chose you, Ro. You understand your role, supporting me while I shine. That line landed like a blade slipping between ribs, gentle, deliberate. Later that night, I sat in the dark living room staring at the stack of papers on the coffee table. The folder glowed in the lamplight, almost humming with quiet power. Inside, it was 7 years of servitude disguised as love. 7 years of our success built from my savings, my salary, my sacrifices, and yet in every story Victor told, I was the lucky one. I ran my fingers across the first page, a receipt from our first vacation together. I remembered the hotel balcony, the ocean, how he'd told me then. We make a great team. You handle logistics. I make us look good. He wasn't wrong. I'd made him look good for too long. I took a deep breath and began printing extra copies of everything, one set for every family member, neatly stapled, labeled, and sealed. By the time the printer cooled, the decision was final. The night before the party, Victor came home with flowers. Grace is thrilled, he said. I told her you were covering decorations. You always make things elegant. She said, That's my future daughter-in-law energy. I raised an eyebrow. I've been your wife for 7 years. He laughed. Details, details. You know what she meant. Anyway, wear the gold dress tomorrow. The one I bought you. The gold dress. I'd paid for it. I smiled faintly. Of course. He walked away, humming, completely unaware that tomorrow his stage was already set. The spotlight was waiting. And for once, I wasn't afraid to stand in it. The night of Grace's 65th birthday felt like stepping onto a theater stage where every actor knew their lines except for the one who thought he was the director. Victor stood in front of the mirror, adjusting his cufflinks. His reflection smiled back, charming and smug. Ready to make an effigies? He asked. I slipped on the gold dress, the one he'd bought. Always, I said quietly. The ride to his parents' house was silent, except for him rehearsing his speech. I'll thank everyone for believing in me, mentioned the Tesla, make Mom tear up a little. Classic heartfelt confident. He chuckled. I'm going to nail this. I just nodded, fingers brushing the folder on my lap. The folder that contained 7 years of truth. Grace and Patrick's home gleamed like it was auditioning for a lifestyle magazine. Candles, orchids, crystal glasses. It was the kind of extravagance that shouted, Look how successful we are. Grace kissed both my cheeks. Rowena, darling. You outdid yourself. Everything looks divine. Thank you, I said. Victor wanted it perfect. Victor grinned, soaking in the praise. You know me, Mom. Always aim high. Candace and Daniel were already there, drinks in hand. Candace wore a glittering jumpsuit that screamed fake confidence. Daniel's wife, Renee, looked me up and down, then smiled politely, the kind of smile people give when they think they're being generous. Rowena, she said, Victor told us about the Tesla. Congratulations. I felt my pulse steady, a calm spreading through me. Oh, he did he? Victor winked. Can't keep good news to myself. Dinner was served. Lobster champagne, the sound of clinking forks filling the silence between Grace's endless monologues about legacy. Then Victor rose from his seat, glass in hand. Everyone, he said, I want to make a toast. The room quieted instantly. He smiled like a man giving a TED Talk. Tonight isn't just about celebrating Mom's birthday. It's about celebrating family, our strength, our perseverance, and, well, our success. Candace clapped softly. Daniel smirked. Grace dabbed her eyes, already emotional. Victor continued. I'm thrilled to announce that my consulting business has landed a major corporate client. To mark the occasion, Rowena and I are upgrading our lifestyle a little. Tesla Model S white interior, of course. The room broke into approving laughter. Grace clasped her hands. I knew it. My son the visionary. Patrick beamed. You've made us proud, Victor. I waited until the applause faded, then I rose to my feet. Actually, I said softly, I'd like to make a toast too. Victor blinked. Rowena, maybe later. No, I said, my tone sharper than I intended. Now's perfect. All eyes turned to me. I held up my own glass, smiling politely. First, I want to thank everyone for welcoming me into this family. It's been enlightening. Grace chuckled uneasy. Oh, sweetheart, you don't have to. But I want to. I reached into my bag and lifted out the folder. Thick, neat, heavy with evidence. Victor's face paled. What are you doing? I just thought, I said lightly. Since we're celebrating all the wonderful things Victor's achieved, it would be fitting to show everyone how we achieve them. Candace frowned. What's that supposed to mean? I set the folder down on the table, the paper spilling slightly. This is a record of every family trip, every birthday party, every gift Victor has ever given in the past 7 years. Each one funded by my salary. The room froze. Patrick blinked. Come again. I flipped open the first page. Trip to Bali, $12, $400. Paid by me. Grace's 60th birthday party, $10, $900. Me again. Candace's business loan, $7,000. Same source. Grace's jaw trembled. You must be mistaken. I'm not, I said, gently sliding copies toward them. You'll see the statements. My name's on every Etheregister. Victor's consulting business, on the other hand, made a grand total of $3,800 across 7 years. Candace's voice cracked. He told us, I know what he told you, I interrupted, that he was successful, that he supported me, that I was the grateful wife who should thank her lucky stars he chose me. I looked directly at him. Wasn't that the story? Victor? He slammed his fist on the table. This is humiliating. You're twisting things. I'm correcting them. Patrick rubbed his temple. Son, is any of this true? Victor's voice faltered. It's complicated. Grace's voice broke into a whisper. You let us believe. Candace snatched a sheet from the pile, reading aloud. Cabo vacation funded by Rowena's account. You told me she was unemployed then. Victor's mask began to crack. It doesn't matter who paid. It's all shared. I tilted my head. Shared, the accounts are in my name. The house, too. You never wanted joint finances, remember? You said it was simpler that way. Daniel's wife muttered, oh my God. Renee leaned forward, her tone icy. So everything, every dinner, every present you've been bragging about for years was actually Rowena's doing. Victor shot her a glare. Stay out of it. I folded my hands calmly. You said you were the prize victor, that I should be grateful. I am. You've made me grateful. I finally see what kind of man I married. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then Grace stood up. Her voice trembled. I don't even know you anymore. Mom, Victor whispered, reaching out. She pulled her hand away. Patrick looked at me ashamed. I'm sorry, Rowena. We had no idea. It's fine, I said softly. None of you did. Candace wiped her eyes. All those years. I thought he was helping me. You believed what he wanted you to believe, I said. So did I. Victor's breathing grew uneven. You planned this. You set me up to fail. I met his eyes. No, Victor. You set yourself up the moment you built a life out of lies. He stared at me like I'd just taken away the air in the room. You've ruined me. I stepped closer, voice calm, quiet. No. You ruined yourself the night you decided I should be grateful to be chosen. Grace whispered something I'll never forget. You taught me tonight that truth can be cruel, but not as cruel as pretending. Victor stormed out moments later, slamming the door so hard the chandelier rattled. The rest of the family sat in stunned silence. Candace passed tissues around. Daniel poured himself another glass of wine. Grace didn't speak again for the rest of the night. I stayed long enough to help clear the table, thank the caterers, and gathered my folder. As I walked out, Patrick stopped me by the door. You didn't humiliate him tonight, he said quietly. You just held up a mirror. I nodded. Sometimes that's the same thing. When I reached the car, the house behind me erupted in muffled shouting. I started the engine feeling nothing. No triumph, no glee, just a heavy kind of peace. The truth was out. The performance was over, and I was finally free from playing the quiet, grateful wife in someone else's show. The silence after a storm is never peaceful. It's heavy, like the air itself is holding its breath, waiting to see who survived. When I woke the next morning, the bed beside me was empty. Victor hadn't come home. For the first time in 7 years, I made coffee for one. The phone buzzed nonstop messages from Grace, Patrick, even Candace. Some were apologies, some were just confusion. But none were angry at me. That alone told me how much the tide had turned. By noon, the story was already spreading. Apparently, Candace's boyfriend had recorded part of the dinner, not intentionally, but because he'd been filming a birthday toast. The audio picked up my voice calm and clear, saying, "You said you were the prize victor. I'm just showing everyone what that prize cost." Someone leaked it to a gossip account, and within hours the clip was everywhere. Family dinner. "Meltdown," the caption said. I should have felt mortified. Instead, I laughed. It wasn't fame, it was justice. That evening, Victor returned. He looked smaller somehow, like his confidence had been ironed out of him. "You embarrassed me," he said, standing in the doorway. I told the truth, in front of everyone, my family, my friends. I sipped my coffee. "Your family, your performance, your audience, you just didn't like the ending." He ran his hand through his hair, pacing. "You've destroyed my reputation." "No, Victor," I said quietly. "You built a reputation on my money. I just repossessed it." He slammed the table. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yes. For the first time, everything I've done means something." He stared at me for a long time. "You'll regret this. You'll end up alone. Maybe. But at least I'll be honest about it." He left again that night, the door closing softer than I expected. The silence that followed wasn't lonely. It was mine. 3 days later, I got a message from Candace. "Hey, Ro, can I come by, please?" I agreed. She showed up clutching a brown envelope. "I don't know where to start," she said, eyes red. "I've been awful to you." She opened the envelope. Inside was a check. For the loan, the one I thought came from Victor. "It's not much, but I'm paying it back in installments. I got a job." That startled me more than the apology. "A job." She nodded. "At a marketing firm. Entry level. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. For once, it's really mine." I smiled. "That's worth more than any Tesla." She laughed through her tears. "You know, I used to think you were cold, distant. Turns out you were just exhausted from carrying everyone." After she left, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the check. I didn't need the money. But something about it made me cry for the first time since the dinner. Not because of sadness, but because someone else had finally taken responsibility. The next visitor came a day later, Grace. She arrived without makeup, wearing plain clothes, which I'd never seen before. "Can I sit?" she asked softly. I nodded. She looked around the house like she was seeing it for the first time. "You built a beautiful home." "Thank you." I should have known. About the money, about him. I stayed quiet. Then she sighed, eyes glistening. "I taught Victor that appearances matter more than effort. I told him people respect success, not honesty. I just never thought he'd take that lesson so literally." I didn't know what to say, so I poured her tea. "I'm sorry, Rowena," she said, "for letting you be invisible all these years." "You weren't the only one," I said softly. "I helped hide myself too." She reached across the table, covering my hand with hers. "You deserve better than this family's illusions." For the first time, I believed her. 2 weeks passed. Patrick called to invite me for lunch. "No cameras, no drama," he said. He poured 2 glasses of wine. "I've retired," he admitted. "Grace and I sold the house. We're moving somewhere smaller." "That's good," I said. "Simpler." He nodded. "You did what none of us had the courage to. You forced us to face who we'd become." He handed me an envelope, another check. $10,000. "It's not enough to repay what you spent, but it's something." I pushed it back toward him. "Keep it. Use it to rebuild. You deserve a life that fits, not one that pretends." Patrick's eyes watered. "You sound like Grace now." "Maybe she's finally listening," I said. And then came Victor. He showed up one evening unannounced, holding a bouquet of wilted roses. His eyes were tired, but his voice was steady. "I've been thinking about what I did." I didn't answer. He sat down, clasping his hands. "You were right. I lied because I couldn't stand being ordinary. Because when people looked at us, they saw a successful man with a supportive wife, and I needed that illusion to feel worth something." "And what do you feel now, empty?" he whispered. "And stupid. I thought power came from admiration. Turns out it comes from accountability." I studied him, this man who once demanded the spotlight, now barely able to look me in the eye. "Grace told me she's proud of me," he said, almost smiling. "Not for the Tesla, for telling the truth in therapy. That's a start." He nodded. "I'm sorry, Ro. I really am. I believe you." I said, but belief isn't the same as reconciliation. He looked down, then stood. I'll sign whatever papers you send. Just don't erase me completely from your memory. I met his eyes. I don't erase lessons, Victor. I learn from them. When he left, I closed the door gently behind him. No yelling, no tears, no grand goodbyes. Just the sound of quiet, the kind of quiet that means you've finally stopped bleeding. That night, I walked into the backyard. The air was cool, still smelling faintly of rain. For the first time in years, I felt like the world wasn't waiting for me to perform. I wasn't someone's supporting act anymore. I wasn't the lucky wife. I was just Rowena, and that was finally enough. It's been 2 months since the birthday dinner that turned my life upside down. 2 months since I stopped being someone's reflection and started becoming someone real again. The divorce papers were signed quietly without drama or lawyers slamming doors. Victor didn't contest a thing. He took his car, his clothes, and a bruised ego. I kept the house my peace, and for the first time in years, control over my own silence. You'd think I'd feel triumphant. I didn't. Freedom isn't fireworks, it's just the absence of noise. I went back to my routines. Work morning runs, coffee on the balcony. But there was something different now. The quiet didn't hurt anymore. The house, once filled with his energy, felt calm. I could breathe again, without waiting for an argument or a performance. Sometimes I'd walk past the mirror and almost not recognize myself. No tension in my shoulders, no forced smiles. Then one morning an email arrived. Subject line, for what it's worth. It was from Victor. Rowena, I won't apologize again. You've heard enough of that from me to last a lifetime. Instead, I wanted you to know that I'm in therapy. Real therapy. Not the kind where I pretend to be the victim. My therapist asked why I felt the need to lie so much, why I built an empire out of stories that weren't mine. The answer was simple and ugly. I couldn't stand being the man who married up. You were better than me, smarter, steadier, stronger. And I tried to rewrite that truth instead of living with it. I told myself I was the prize because I didn't know how to be grateful. You showed me what it costs to perform instead of improve. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I'm learning how to live without applause. P.S. I've started paying my family back for the things you bought them. Grace thinks it's from a consulting project. Let her believe it. Some lies are harmless. They buy time for real growth. Victor. I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no anger left in me. Just finality. That's how you know a story's over, when even your pain doesn't want to linger. Candace calls sometimes. She's thriving now. Her marketing job turned into a real career. Daniel and Renee invited me to their anniversary dinner last week. Patrick sends postcards from their smaller home by the coast, writing things like, "We're learning to live within our means, finally." And Grace surprisingly texts me photos of her garden every Sunday. Real soil, she writes, not rented landscapes. I think that's her way of saying thank you. As for me, I didn't rush into dating. Love isn't a wound you bandage with someone new. It's a skill you relearn carefully. Instead, I joined a woodworking class. Something about shaping rough timber into something beautiful felt symbolic, like rebuilding without pretending the scars weren't there. The first piece I made was a small jewelry box. On the lid, I carved a single word, truth. My instructor, an older man with kind eyes, asked, "Why that word?" I told him, "Because truth is heavy when you carry it alone, but light when you finally set it down." He smiled. "Then you must be lighter these days." "I am," I said, and I meant it. Last weekend, while shopping for groceries, I ran into Ben and Melissa, the couple from that infamous dinner. They looked nervous at first, unsure if they should bring it up. Melissa touched my arm. "We heard about everything, Ro. That night when Victor said those things about you, I wanted to scream. You looked so calm, but I could tell you were dying inside." I smiled. I was just waiting for the right audience. Ben chuckled. "Guess you found one." We exchanged numbers. They invited me to dinner next week, not the performative kind, the real kind, the kind where laughter doesn't feel rehearsed. That night, as I drove home, I caught my reflection in the window. Not the tired woman who used to flinch at every sigh, but someone new, someone honest. When I got home, I reread Victor's email one last time. Then I moved it to a folder labeled Lessons. Not love, not past, not regrets. Just lessons. Before bed, I stood by the window, city lights flickering like quiet applause. I thought about all the words he used to control me. grateful, supportive, lucky. And I whispered to my reflection, "No, Victor, I wasn't lucky. You were. You just didn't know how to keep it." In the end, he was right about one thing. He said he was the prize. Maybe he was the prize that taught me the cost of mistaking arrogance for confidence and charm for love. But the real victory wasn't proving him wrong. It was finally learning that I didn't need to win. Because the moment I stopped being someone's prize, I became my own.